Welcome back to First Last Podcast from the First, the Last, the Nerdum, where this month we're embracing the strange, the dangerous, and the downright unhinged with our latest theme, Psycho Summer. All month long, we're exploring films about killers, outcasts, obsessives, and people who drift far beyond society's guardrails. Some are horrifying, some are tragic, and some are charismatic. And you almost forget how dangerous they really are. And this week, we're taking a look at the 1973 classic, Badlands. Directed by Terrence Malick in his feature film debut, Badlands is inspired by the real-life killing spree of Charles Starkweather and Carol Ann Fugate. The film follows Kit and Holly, two young lovers who flee across the American Midwest after committing murder and leaving a trail of violence behind them. But unlike many crime films, Badlands isn't interested in sensationalizing its killers. Instead, it presents their journey with a dreamlike beauty and an unsettling detachment, creating a story that is equal parts road movie, romance, character study, and crime thriller. Featuring unforgettable performances from Martin Sheen and Sissy Spacek, Badlands has become one of the most influential American films of the 1970s, inspiring countless stories about lovers on the run and criminals chasing freedom across an indifferent landscape, even a hostile one. So pack your bags, hit the open road, and remember, sometimes the most dangerous people don't look like monsters at all. This is the First Last Podcast, and Psycho Summer continues with Badlands. Hey, Tom, how you doing?
I'm good. I thought this would be a interesting counterbalance to Seven that we covered last week. Badlands is sort of on the opposite scale. It's more of a kind of a philosophical, poetic kind of movie. So I thought that would be a nice balance from the hardcore violence of Seven. But yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this one was good. But before we get into our main event here, we got to pay some bills and do some show and tell. And what does that mean? Well, we have a website, firstlastnerdom.com. You can go and see it there. It needs a little bit of a spring summer clean. It just needs to be updated. But anyway, nonetheless, you can also catch us at home base on YouTube at First Last Nerdom. And you can find us all there with our latest and greatest that we love to share with the masses. And we are very happy to showcase some of our finer work here. You can check out our shorts, our live, as well as our playlist. Anyway, I'll throw it over to you, Tom, because I think there's something that we do on Reddit or Blue It or Green It or no, it's Reddit.
Yeah, under First Last Nerdum, I promote her stuff. Yep, and sometimes they'll get through the the filters and the mods and whatnot. But yeah, if you're coming over from there, hello. But also, yeah, I'm also on X under First Last Nerdum as well. And if you wanted to know about our latest videos, I definitely try to post, letting you know when something's come out. We're usually weekly. Sometimes we skip a week because life gets in the way, but yeah, that's where you'll find about our latest video if you're kind of interested in keeping up with us. And then you have your socials on X as well.
Yes, sir, I do. I am at Suffoking Jewish _. Occasionally, you'll see me and Tom banter back and forth, but we're always available on Homebase YouTube. And this week, as promised, we are getting into Badlands. Yeah, this one was really I had no idea this existed, which is not strange for the excellent movies that you do pick. But this one was really cool to be able to watch. It's not long at all, about an hour and a half. So you can get in there, but what it has to say and show you is also is pretty cool. It's well, some of it's cool. Some of it's it could be disturbing, depending upon on
Yeah.
where you're coming from and whatnot. But uh, I do think that this is in line, though. I have seen a number of these movies. This is like one of those, like the famous one that I would imagine that comes up not long before after this one is mentioned is Bonnie and Clyde, which there's a few famous examples of those made either before this one or later on or not. But this one, not I mean it's there, but the Bonnie and Clyde was a little bit more black and white, literally. Not
Mhm.
both that and then how it portrays it because back in those days they couldn't let the bad guy get away with it, but so they had to kind of
Mhm.
spin it off and do. You can kind of see that in some of these things. But anyway, where we usually like to go, or where I like to ask you, is like, how did you find this? And then just what's your history with it, and what did it inspire you to recommend it for this month's series, Psycho Summer?
Yeah, I have a love of horror movies, but also I have a love of just independent, kind of weird, interesting little movies. And my younger sister, who we've had on here talking about ElfQuest, she likes those weird independent movies. We both love David Lynch, and
Hmm.
for a while there, I think I don't know if this was a movie we rented or if it was something we caught on cable. But it was one of those movies that kind of captivated both of us, so we both fell in love with it. And on the surface, you go, okay, a movie about Charles Starkweather and his murderous spree there during a summer. This movie kind of defies expectations. When you hear it's about a mass murderer running around with a girl, you think Bonnie and Clyde or something. It has the tinges of that, but that's not what this movie is about. It's not this kind of glorified version of of a killer. It does talk about killers, but it gets more poetic, and it's almost like a fairy tale at times, even though you have some darkness in it. There, the movie's kind of caught up in the mind of this young lady and this
Holly.
killer, yeah, Holly and Kip. They're is older than Holly, but they seem to be arrested in their world. They're not, she at times even seems older than him because
Hmm.
he's equally as caught up into the fantasy world as she is. This isn't like a well thought out killer like in Seven. Seven, the
No.
guy had it all planned out, whereas this one, you really don't know how much Kip has had that has this thing planned out, which probably wasn't planned out at all in what he was doing. He's sort of like flying by the seat of his pants, and whether or not he's going to kill somebody almost kind of depends on his mood in this. But it's not
Yeah.
this hard calculating person. You do see him as a person. He's not like this monster that you're like he's almost he kind of, as he wins over people in the movie, he kind of wins you over as well. You're almost on his side, and when he does break out into violence, you're kind of like, oh wow, okay, that's happening. But he does have a charm that really kind of wins you over in this movie. So it's kind of this weird paradoxical thing of being kind of fascinated by a killer. And I think a show like, say, Sopranos picks up a little bit on this as well, as far as, portraying a killer as human. And you almost have to, just because the fact that they are human, you do at times start to relate to them. And then you have to kind of look at, those dark moments in your life. You go, okay, well,
Yeah.
how far am I away from, how many shades of gray is between us? But yeah, it's a very, very fascinating movie that really kind of is like a very interesting take on the subject. It's not,
Mhm.
something that's easily digestible.
No, it's not, and I'm glad you touched on their age, like, and to kind of give the audience a little bit of thing. We don't really do back big history background things and set up here, but Starkweather is a unique thing to kind of help set the table for the movie.
Mhm.
The original Charles Starkweather was, is January 1958. And he's 19 years old. He was a garbage collector from Lincoln, Nebraska. He had a bad stutter. He had a chip on his shoulder, the size of the Great Plains, and an obsession with James Dean. He dressed like him. He put a comb through his hair, greased it up just like him. But he is not him. you know. But uh, um, he is very deeply, dangerously not James Dean. Now, his girlfriend, Carol Ann Fugate, and I apologize if I'm butchering that. She's 14 years old.
Mhm.
And then I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but to kind of set up the real world, to kind of show you that this does have some real world backing, as far as like based on sort of true events, but
Mhm.
obviously turned into a movie. It turned to art, and not in a positive way, like just art in general. But Starkweather shoots and kills Carol's mom, stepfather, and her 2-year-old half sister, and their home. And then over the next 8 days, he kills more people across Nebraska, Wyoming, the Great Plains, and he gets a real count, his real count up. And this was, some say this was like the first true crime media frenzy in the dawning television age, because the cameras show up and do exactly what the cameras do. They find him handsome, they find him compelling, not quite to the idolatry that we have today with our
Mhm.
some of our more bizarre and eccentric killers. But anyway, going back to the thing, this kind of sets that up. Did you know about that particularly before seeing the movie, of like the history, like and there's a lot more I'm dropping, but just
Mhm.
curious if you knew about that beforehand.
No,
I
no,
did not.
when I first saw it, no, it was just one of those movies that, like, kinda come out of nowhere, and it's sort of like, takes you unaware. Like I said, you think you've seen this, you've heard of Bonnie and Clyde, you've seen these kind of road movies, of violent, couple going, crazy across the landscape of America. You think you know this movie, but like I said, it surprised you. And in fact, Terrence Malick, when he told when he hired Sissy Spacek, he specifically told her not to do any research on Carol and Starkweather. That
Mhm.
that's not what this movie is. That's the springboard, and he's
Right.
dealing with themes and ideas kind of inspired by that, but that's not what this movie is. And in fact, he kind of softens the edges. It's just her father that ends up dying. It's not the mother and the
Mhm.
small child. A lot the more heinous things that Starkweather did in real life is not doesn't take place here in the movie.
Right.
So that it's a little bit more palatable. And in fact, yeah, I think with a lot of these movies, they're especially done by these auteurs that have something to say. A lot of these movies are kind of before their time. It's just Spacek said that when she saw a premiere of it, everybody was kind of speechless by the end of the movie. And there's parts where it's just funny, for what he said. Martin Sheen says as Kip, and Spacek as Holly. There's a lot of humor in the movie. And she goes, and she said that she saw it recently and with an audience. And yeah, and people now laugh at the moments where they're supposed to laugh. And
Right.
yeah, she thinks it's kind of just a change in society. It was a lot more shocking at the time, but in maybe a little bit more shocking than it probably should have been. It's it begins with the with Kip speculating on this dead dog, and try to get his Kato, his garbage guy, to eat it for $1. It's like,
Right.
yeah, you kind of, the one of the things that I was kind of remarking on this time about watching it is that Kip is you kind of maybe you don't know a mass murderer, but you know a guy like him that kind of weaves kind of tall tales and is really good with talking to people. That maybe has a little bit of a darker edge to him. But you know of people. You've run into people like this, that is more very, very charismatic. But you sense a kind of a darker undertone to them. But yeah,
Yeah.
you've seen this guy before, um, and also talking about the ages, yeah, the character Holly is 15 in the movie.
Mhm.
The It's mere Starkweather. The guy Kip was going to be 19, but Martin Sheen at the time was in his 30s. I think he's 32.
Yeah,
And
I was gonna
after
say that.
reading, yeah, and Terrence Malick offered the role to Martin, and he said, I love the script. It's the best script I've ever read, but I can't do it because I'm not 19. I'm going to mess up your movie, and for being 32. And Malik says, I was thinking about aging him up. So, and then in the movie, they mentioned that he's 25 in this, and and actually, Sissy Spacek was 24 playing 15, and you know, Sheen was playing 32 and playing 25. But I, I couldn't see anyone else portraying those two characters, and I think that's what Malik found out when he tested Martin Sheen and Spacek together. They just kind of clicked, and he just had to have both of them for the roles. And this is the first time either of them kind of carried a movie like this. It's basically about them in this
Right.
movie, and he had the faith. And Martin said that after he got it, he was driving the next day, and he just kind of had to pull over, and he kind of broke down. And he just was he said that he knew he had it in him, but it was the very first time that someone else, Terrence Malick, first time someone had saw that within him, that he could do it. And he was just kind of overcome with emotion. And to this day he still says that this is the best script that he's ever read or performed on screen. But yeah, very, very high praise from him. And but yeah, and I think Spacek, she was the first person cast in this movie. He just when he saw her, it was like, okay, yeah, this is Holly. Um but yeah, they're just I don't know, there's this kinetic energy between the two of them. He's sort of like a bundle of nerves, and she's sort of like she's just watching him. There's like that interesting balance. If she was as wild and kinetic as he was, it would be a little bit too much. Whereas she's sort of like and you would think, with the ages and whatnot, the younger would be kind of the crazy one. But no, it's interesting balance. And like I said, um I don't know, a lot of times with a movie like this, if there's like that huge age difference, or there's like that guy, there's a sort of like that cringe factor that could creep into it. But I
Yeah.
don't get it with this movie. There's
I I yeah, I was gonna say that. Yeah,
Mhm,
yeah, like you said, yeah, he like Sheen was in his young, early 30s, young, still very young. And of course, back then that was like practically 25 when you were in your 30s. Yeah, just
mhm,
different era. And she was in her early 20s, is to mirror him,
mhm,
and inadvertently or on purpose, they do mirror the real world. Because there is a difference between a 19-year-old who's 20, essentially an
mhm,
adult, fully grown, and a 14-year-old girl. 15. It doesn't matter. It's that
mhm.
age gap. And I was going to say too, two things. Uh, when did you like Kit at the beginning? I mean, as the film progressed, because I did find myself maybe not liking him, but kind of being more drawn to that charisma, that cool
Mhm.
side, that you can kind of tell like when he's trying hard a little bit, but it does, for the way the movie plays, though, it does go in his favor. So there's that I think it does anyway. But did
Mhm.
you like Kit? And then and speaking about of Holly, of Sissy's character too, about the victim, or
Mhm.
willing account. Anyway, I'll stop there, and I will throw it back to you as far as like what your thoughts are. Like when you first see Kit, and you get to know him, and you get to know all the the Riz, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, when you first see him, like I said, he's he's talking about the yeah, daring a guy to eat a dog for $1, and, he's just he's fascinating to start with. You're like,
Right.
"Okay, who is this guy?" And, he shows up, and he talks to, Holly, and you go, "Well, what's this guy's angle?" "What's this who is this guy?" And you're sort of like fascinated with him even at that point. But as you go along, and you try to project yourself into the characters, and you try to find human emotion in them. But I think a lot of what like you said, what Kip is doing is he's performing,
Hmm.
when he's being your pal, he's kind of performing. He sees people as obstacles. I think he says something to that effect in the movie where, the people, he kind of likes people, they're all right. But he could take it or leave it, and I think the only person, and I don't even know if he truly loved Holly, he needed somebody there with him,
Hmm.
He needed somewhere when to witness what he was doing, he's making his mark, and he needed that person to be an eyewitness. And and there's like a voiceover that she does throughout the movie, and it's we're led to believe that that's sort of like the diary that she's keeping through the adventures. And at one point, he's going through her stuff and finds the little notebook, and he kind of looks at it. But yeah, I think he gets a thrill out of the fact that she is sort of there and sort of documenting what's going on. There's sort of like and she's sort of like his comrade in this. And even though she's not doing any of the killing, the fact that she's there and staying with him, that's
Witnessing
sort of
him.
like a yeah, it's sort of like a affirmation of, okay, he's not totally off the rails because she's still there with him. And I think
And
there's
it also kind of shows that he does care about something other than outside of himself. And
Mhm.
that might be debatable, like when you get down to the fine print, but
Uh-huh. And he has a weird um this weird kind of sort of he could see outside of himself. A lot of he's very narcissistic, and a lot of those could get so trapped up in their head that they don't see the outside perspective of things. Where he makes comments every once in a while, and it's like, okay, he's astute in seeing how other people are gonna see this. Like yeah, he writes down at one point they steal from this rich guy, and they stay at his house a little bit, and
yeah.
he wrote a list of everything that they took and gave it to him. He's, oh, he could probably sell that for a bunch of money afterwards. Yeah. But yeah, he's very astute as far as how he'll be perceived, and he's very obsessed with how he's going to be perceived. And there's that scene, he's being chased by the cops, and he looks in the rear view mirror to take a look, and he can't help but check his hair. He's very very vain, and very
Very.
aware of, he's
I
his people have probably told him that looks like James Dean. And he's very obsessed. There's like a at one point the cop says, I'll kiss your butt if you don't agree that he looks like James Dean. And the Kip grins ear to ear, because that's just kind of feeding into his ego.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I was guys to Holly, you think she is a victim, or you think she's an accomplice, or well, I mean, you kind of
Mhm.
kind of parsed that a little bit before, like, but
Mhm.
I don't know, like, I think she's a little bit of both. I mean,
Yeah, well, yeah, and she's 15. She really, yeah. I mean, it's a really, really, yeah. And then that's probably a lot of what people kind of went through, with in real life with Fugate, try to figure out, if she was really kidnapped or not. And there's
Right.
times where Fugate could have left Starkweather, and then this thing she could have left him. There's one point where she was walking in the yard, and she could have just took off, and she makes a note of that, and she's probably confused with herself. It's like the she was probably in shock after he killed her dad, and so she's sort of and he's probably, at the beginning, she kind of fell in love with him. He's the most handsome man she'd ever seen. And so there was that natural attraction, and there's the idea of abused women that stay with their partners. It's kind of almost safer to stay with what as opposed to trying to go find something else. It's yeah, and like I said, it's probably a mix of both, and then she probably has guilt as well, and it's
Right.
it's probably safe. It's safer for her mentally to kind of stay. The longer she stays with him, it kind of compels her to stay with him even further. And but there is a breaking point. That's you do eventually get to, but yeah, I think you know she kind of rationalized, and also he's you see what happens, like they get ambushed, they're living out in the woods, and they're
A
ambushed,
little
and
treehouse and
yeah.
little whimsical Peter Pan, a
Uh,
little bit of Never Never Land.
Mhm. Absolutely, and you see how it plays out, but then afterwards, she wasn't up close to it, and the way he explains it to her, puts the best light on him. He said he overhears them talking about the money, and that's what they're going in for. They don't really care about them at all. So he's probably feeding into her ear what she probably wants or needs to hear, and what he feels like will keep her with him. Like I said, the things kind of fall apart when there's a schism between them. He needs her as much as if not more than what she needs him.
Oh,
The further it goes, there's kind of like a power dynamic that kind of flips.
well, yeah, well, and I recognize that he is obviously tremendously selfish and
Yeah.
whatnot, but he
Mhm.
is, he's also he does care. I mean, outside of just telling his story or whatever his in his mind's eye of this, I don't know, like, uh, uh, I guess a birth of him being bigger than himself and realizing it, and then this is the whatever, I don't know. But going back to that, he needs her. You're right. There is this kind of this unnatural thing, and it's also through her eyes versus him. He kills her dad, and then they go in, and then this doesn't take too long for this to get going for them to hit once they hit the road, but they burn the house down, and then they're dancing and playing. I mean, like just that kind of like I don't know if that's her just not really connecting to. I don't know, who knows, but it does. She does seem to give herself away. And I do think that I do agree with you, maybe a little bit, that there was like maybe half survival mechanism and half, you know, just
Well well, then and
not.
with her diary and the voiceover, it kinda reads like, kind of a schoolgirl's fantasy, romantic fantasy of things,
Well,
and as things Mhm,
that also puts like a tilted layer on it too. Like the way that
mhm,
it's narrated throughout, it's just kind of calm and this jarring.
mhm.
Anyway, sorry, go on.
Oh, yeah, and I was gonna say, with voiceovers, there's 2 ideas about that. In some of the interviews I was, read or listening to, they, That's what editor said that, Jack Lemmon had said, you kind of lost your movie if you have to depend on voiceovers. But I think it depends on, how you use the voiceovers. If it's used as a crutch to kind of prop up a movie that didn't do a good job with telling the story, and they have to use kind of voiceovers to kind of fill in the gaps that aren't there on the screen. I think that's bad filmmaking. Whereas in this case, the voiceover was planned at the beginning, and it's very much integral part. It's not like it's trying to make up for what's on the screen. It's just filling in the details that you wouldn't have normally, and at times it's at odds with what's on the screen.
Well,
There's a
they do that a few times too.
yeah, yeah, it's like they're going across the Badlands in Montana. Kip told her to appreciate the scenery as it goes by, and she said that she is. And then you see this desolate land that they're just driving across. It's like, how can you appreciate that? But yeah, there's some really really interesting things that she says during that kind of haunts and lives with you. And there's like I see David Lynch as a painter, whereas in a director, a filmmaker that's very much a painter, and he paints these wonderful images. And I think of Malick. He has a very big eye for the scenery as well, but I think his touchstone is how he uses the words or the lack of words to kind of create a feeling, a kind of a poetic kind of vibe that kind of plays out through the whole thing. This is a his first film, and but it's really accomplished. There's a lot of young filmmakers. They kind of break out of the gate, and they want to make these loud bombastic movie that kind of wallop you over the head, with flashy, cuts and whatnot, but this is a much more tempered movie that's evenly paced, and you don't get that kinetic energy that first time movie would normally get. It's much more even to it. And it's the fact that he was a philosophy student probably has a lot to do with it. And also, he taught philosophy at MIT. He didn't want to be a teacher. He wanted to be a filmmaker. So, yeah, and so he raised money for this. And also, Ed Ed R. Pressman, he's one of the producers of this. And Malick also produced it. So you had the worry as along with writing and directing it. You had also had to worry about the money aspect of this movie as well, and the fact that he had all this on his head, and he had a film crew that was much more experienced than he was. There's Jack Fisk, the art director, and he had a script supervisor that she felt like she knew more than him, and felt like the way he was structuring the scenes was not going to edit well. And
Right.
she would do things like turn the little thing, the marker upside down in protest. And he went through three different cameramen because they didn't, the first one didn't think that, he was putting the images together, the scenes together properly, and wasn't filming them properly. And but they thought he was very inexperienced. And what Jack Fisk, the art director, that's just how he wasn't naive. He just had a different way of looking at film. And the fact that they went through three different cameramen, and it doesn't look like a mess, like it was filmed by three different cameramen, that he had a singular vision that he had the cameraman focus on. That that it's kind of amazing that it all looks all together like a complete piece of work, and not this hodgepodge of different cameramans and their work.
Absolutely, yeah. No, well, they send you, or they they show the dad, you know, and they're or the scenery, like where they go. Sorry. Oh my God. Anyway, I lost my train of thought. Sorry. They constantly are beating you with, you know, I'm trying not to play too much of the in the background so as to get where this is recorded. But anyway, they 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 don't they don't hide anything, but at the same time, everything's big and wide too. That's another thing that I really did appreciate. Yeah, it is kind of like a little bit of a dream state or whatever. But I mean, or a fantasized kind of state, and the consistency in the world building is just as awesome as and they also take their time too. They're not afraid to use silence too, like older movies. Like, this is what I love. Like, sometimes it could be overdone. Like in one, we didn't really talk about it, or we didn't touch on it too much, but the original Ocean's 11, like there are times like where there is just dead air and they're just rolling, and in a modern thing that would be disastrous. Because there's always got to be kind of something going on or this or that. But when you do that though, and it's proper, and it lets it breathe, it does enhance the next thing that comes up. And this is not an action packed whatever. I mean, it certainly does have its moments, but it's not. It's also like, again, it's kind of like a fractured fairy tale, I suppose, like of sorts. Like to in their mind anyway, at least in the way that it's being portrayed. It is to kind of show him, a little bit more of he's cool, essentially he's cool, because he's on the road, and they're going to make their own life, and they're going to make their own, their own thing. And kind of for a limited
Yeah.
period of time. And you're right. It's not about the money. It's not about this. It's not about, it's about their journey together, and at least in their in their heads, but it is about the naked thrill of it. I mean, the can do it, and he didn't care anyway. I mean, he is absolutely you know egotistical, and only sees
Yep.
himself, and sees her, and kind of sees the inventing reasons to
Yeah.
kind of
And
do some of the things he does. I mean, get to that level, but I mean, it kind of.
yeah, he's sort of all in on this. This is his big moment, whereas she's more of a bystander, kind of watching it. In fact, she says at one point, she talks about happenstance, and if her mother hadn't met her father, what would have happened to her, and then she speculated on the man that she's going to marry, and it's clearly not Kip. She said, yeah, what is he doing? It's like she sees this as a temporary thing. She knows that she's not going to end up with Kip. This isn't sustainable. And I think at that point, she's kind of out of the fairy tale land, and she's kind of like, okay, there's reality sort of starting to set in, whereas Kip is all in on the fantasy, even up to the end. He's looking for ways out, and reality hasn't quite settled in on him. And it's interesting to see him as he goes, and it's almost it's very much dependent on his mood or how he's feeling at the moment, whether or not he's going to kill somebody. And there's moment where he's proven that he's a cold-blooded killer, and this guy shows up at the rich guy's house, and he has an appointment with him, and there's that total tension of, will he or won't he kill, and the other guy doesn't know what's hanging in the balance, whereas we do, and Kip. And it's interesting to let that play out, and let Kip kind of go through the process of, do I kill him? Do I not? Do I get him in here? And what am I going to do with this guy? And interesting enough, that guy that shows up there is actually the writer director Terrence Malick, the guy that was supposed to play that character couldn't make it that day, so he actually stepped in, and that's the once and only time you get to see him on film. He's kind of after this movie, he did do some interviews for this movie, but he's kind of after that, he kind of went the Kubrick way, and let the work speak for itself, and you don't get any interviews with him or anything. He's just a bit of a recluse in that area, so it's kind of interesting being able to see him on the screen.
Yeah, oh, I think it's from his generation of director or or work, and of course he is also coming from, like he had mentioned, he knows a thing or two about philosophy and about life and talking and telling a story would be, I would imagine, what we get from him, which is this. And I was going to say too, Holly's the other thing too about those, to kind of pick up on your bystander comment and expand on it a little bit more too. That the voiceover, you notice that she didn't. It's very peaceful how she's just flat. I mean, she doesn't process anything. She just describes, you know.
Mhm.
But she has the cadence of, I don't know. It was like a diary or a letter or something, like and she I don't know, she I do think that if you were to kind of, the way that they kept her prose kind of simplistic, I think too, to kind of reflect her age. Did that
Mhm.
come through at all to you? Because I kind of picked up on that too, like where she would write or talk like somebody who hasn't really truly experienced life. I mean,
Right.
beside outside of the cliches, and she kind of says some kind of, kind of standard kind of things,
Mhm.
which are not untrue I mean, necessarily, but they're it's like watching somebody who has read about love and writes about
Right.
it, but hasn't experienced it quite yet. Like I said, there's no processing in her voice or the voiceover, or
Mhm.
it's just the story that you're on this journey, and the story, and to the aesthetics too. The Malik, like, that he knew what his vision was, and he was steady, and despite having those difficulties with his film, with the making the film, which also was very low budget for the day too. Anyway,
Mhm.
we didn't even talk about that. I think it was filmed in Colorado largely.
Yeah.
Um, but anyway, he's kind of throwing in facts there, but it's got this kind of pace to it too, that it's not hurried, it's not bothered. It just kind of goes along. And again, you, the audience, I think you are kind of also there to kind of witness this in a certain way too, with Holly. As because we're
Mhm.
kind of joined in with Holly from her perspective anyway,
Right.
whether we like it or not, because that voiceover is it is driving some of the the next steps and kind of the thing. And it's like, okay, where are we going here? But she's not stupid either. Sissy Spacek is not playing like a dim girl or dumb girl. I just think it's somebody who's just literally naive. Like
Mhm.
that they are naive, and this is all new to them, in a very novel and scary way, which kind of adds to another layer of just the flatness of, like, when it's
Mhm.
described and you see it, and as they progress, it's like, Jesus. what what the hell, what was going on there? It causes you to ask more questions, or at least be, you don't get the answers to them, but it causes the characters to be deeper. Anyway, that was my point. Long way to wind up,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, yeah, and it's yeah, it's a multifaceted character in that if you got just your average Hollywood female actress playing it, give them a southern accent, and they might have played her a little bit dumber than would have been necessary. That I think Sissy Spacek knew this person because uh she was a bit of that person. She's from
Mhm.
Texas. She's playing a character, from Texas that's living in South Dakota. It's filmed in Colorado, but it beginning of it mostly takes place in South Dakota, and yeah, and she has that the right bit of innocence, but also yeah, you get the sense, even though she may not say it, but there's a sense of intelligence about her. You know, she's not just some dumb hick kid. You know, she is very thoughtful, and you know, you can tell it in the way that she kind of looks at him and kind of puzzles over him. And in some interviews, Sissy Spacek was saying that, you know, at the time she was living in New York and she thought she was kind of this rocker girl, you know, um, and that you know, she'd built up her these airs about herself that maybe weren't true, and when she went to play this character, it hit home to her that, you know, this character was probably more true to her than the persona that she was trying to portray of herself in real life. That you know, she really understood this character. And yeah, there is that change. There's like I said, there's a fairy tale aspect to it, but then there's a darker side. And I like how it doesn't like throw it in your face. You know, there is violence, but it's much more subtle. You know, after he kills her father, you know, and she'd kind of, you know, refused cigarettes. You know, he was smoking, and he'd offer it to her, and she wouldn't take a cigarette. But you know, after he kills her father, you know, she goes upstairs, and you know, she kind of has this walk to her, and she's wearing that green frilly dress. You know, she still has the childhood accoutrements, but you know, she's smoking a cigarette, and you can see the sort of like in her expression, there's sort of like a darkness to her expression, and you see, you know, the clash between reality and innocence. And I think Malick does a fantastic job of showing that balance. You know, there's a lot of nature in this movie. There's a lot of second unit filming that he did, showing you how beautiful nature is, but and then placing them within nature. It's sort of like there is that clash of beauty and violence that's inherent in nature, you know. And you know, and maybe they're just a couple other animals living in this world, you know. And you know, how much different are they from what's going on in the that world at that time, you know. He has
Yeah,
this really beautiful sense of what makes a good shot. You know, there's Jack Fisk said that, you know, they would get kind of upset with him at the time because, you know, they'd be all set up to film, and he goes, "Oh, but it looks, the lighting is so much better over there. Let's start shooting over here." And again, they thought he was, you know, this guy that didn't know anything about filmmaking, but he has a real sense of what composition looks like. And there's that scene where the father's painting that big sign on the side of the road, and you know, Jack Fisk and this other lady had painted, you know, did the artwork for that. And there's like a piece of the sign that's taken out, and Malick had said, "Hey, can we take a you know, a panel out of that so you can see the sky, but outside that, so that when it was filmed, it's not two guys against this billboard. You know, you got that little square of space where you can see into the sky, you know, and it just gives this beautiful depth to the scene. That's you know, you've got this beautiful composition of this interesting painting, but then this
yeah.
the conflict between the two of them, but then also the blue sky and the beauty of the scene playing out. It's just such a rich tapestry to kind of be looking at and kind of drinking in all of the details of that.
Yeah, well, the not just the scenery, but also the music too, by Carl.
Mhm. Carl Orff, yep.
Yeah, that all, and that's that's throughout the film. It again, it adds to it, but My understanding is that Terrence Malick, he also did Days of Heaven in
Mhm.
1978 later on, which is also considered another visual masterpiece. That's about all I know about it, but
Mhm.
still, I would be very. I mean, I would be absolutely checking out that because I mean, what you get with this is just quality
Mhm.
through and through. Just on the world building and letting things breathe, letting the characters be. I mean, you were just as detached as Holly is.
Mhm.
I mean, but she's a little bit closer to the truth than we are. But,
Mhm.
you know, as it unrolls, but, it's also, nothing he doesn't hide anything either. He doesn't overly explain things either. Again, when you see this, you know, when you go from here and it's more poignant versus, you know, going over here, like, to where it's kind of a throwaway part or you're kinda like, "What the hell? What why are they talk to the one guy, like, what the hell is that?" You know, anyway, but, it's still it doesn't take away from it, like it can, uh, I find anyway, and other lower quality material from modern day.
Yeah. Yeah, and, to expand upon the music, especially Carl Orff, that was one of the things that my sister and I just absolutely loved was the music in it, and, we tracked down the pieces of music by Carl Orff, so 'cause, we were very enchanted by that music, but, uh the way Malik had come across it is he was working on a project that never came to fruition with Irvin Kershner. You know, the Irvin Kershner's famously directed Empire Strikes Back, but yeah, he was wanting to do this a movie and that Carl Orff music he felt was perfect for that, and he had played it for Terrence, and Terrence Malick had fell in love with that music, and that's what he went to for this, and it kind of fits because it's sort of like I forget the terminology, but it's basically kind of suites of music that is kind of simplistic. It's sort of a music a teaching tool of music for children to get into music. So that's sort of like basic repetition of sounds and whatnot.
Mhm.
In it that and so it's kind of um there to compel children to fall in love with the music and become into music, so it has that childlike innocence to it that fits perfectly with this movie because there's that innocence about it. In fact,
Well,
you hear that strain of the little chanting sounds, that kind of, they use that, they don't use it, completely. There are different, musical reiterations of that in, True Romance, and
oh,
you'll
I didn't know that.
hear that in that movie as well. Another
Huh.
movie that's about sort of a young couple in, the grips of, innocence and, violence. But yeah, another one that I thoroughly enjoy. But yeah, this is again, the music is perfect in this movie, and it sort of like has that gives it that timeless nature to it. He didn't want it to be set, he wanted it to be kind of a fairy tale that isn't set in a specific time, even though you can kind of track it down through the comments and the the various things that they say in it. But yeah, he wanted that sort of timeless nature to it.
Well, you see these wide open space, which, you know, I don't know. I don't wanna say manifest destiny, but the landscape is just it could be whatever, you know? And then this music too, also this, I had that pulled up,
Mhm.
Carl
Carl
Orff,
Orff.
yeah,
Mhm.
it was, Gassenhauer, butchered that, sorry, it's from the film. But anyway, it's simplistic, but it draws you in, and it does I think it reflects the what I don't think this is necessarily an innocence lost because there's some other things going on too that are kind of supersede that. I think that are more interesting. It is their adventure and it is their story, and you even have the minor celebrity stage as well for the
Mhm.
for Kit.
Mhm.
But but yeah, this one was really, really awesome. Just the world
Yeah.
building in this. It reminded me of the we covered it not long ago, but it had kind of set up the same kind of 50s on the plains. I think it was, but it was shot in Canada, Alberta, Canada. But anyway, it doesn't matter. But
Mhm.
that kind of the plains and there also. But this is a completely different. This is a little bit more mature set of in the story than that one was, for sure. That one was definitely Innocence. But this
Yeah.
is it's in there, but it's not the thing that is already there because you're again, like the way that she describes things is like kind of like, it's also kind of like you can take it two ways too, like kind of like, well, he said he's sorry for shooting my dad, no, not really, but but he said
Uh-huh.
that to her, you know what I mean? Like you're gonna believe him because as far as she's concerned, like this is this is my reality now. This is
Mhm.
this is the kind of the I don't know. I can't. I really put any symbolism to like them burning the house down or whatever. But the I don't know. That it goes. There's a lot there that you could probably unwind. That there are people far smarter than me. It could cover in this. But as far as this goes, this was a really awesome, and makes me want to see more. I don't think this was based on a novel, but if it was,
No, no.
no, it was just his original screenplay,
Yeah.
which comes through for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, this movie inspired me to kind of seek out his other works, and yeah, I've seen most. There's one that came out in
This was his first
2019 that I haven't
film
seen
too.
yet. Yeah, his first film. Yeah, like I said,
I mean, it's a grand slam as far as like
Mhm,
how heavy it is. Now
mhm,
did it get it? Awards or accolades? Yeah, that's maybe another conversation. But anyway, you were saying.
mhm. Yeah, 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 it got a really good write up in I think New York Times, and which inspired I think Warner Brothers to pay $1 million for it,
Mm,
which paid off everybody that had invested into the movie and actually
oh,
paid one of the actors, but yeah, it was yeah, it did have a mixed, yeah, it wasn't a hit. They paired it as a double feature with Blazing Saddles, which, doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
that would truly be
Mhm.
that would truly be a very manic depressive uh connection. Not too bad, but still, I could not imagine why rolling right going from this one and rolling right I mean, maybe that would probably be the better to see this one first, get the ickiness or the whatever, the serious heavy dewy
Mhm.
whatever kind of angst out, and then you roll right into Blazing Saddles. That actually might work, but not
Yeah.
like how they were probably thinking.
Right. And, interesting trivia, I read this on IMDb. The film's tagline in 1959, a lot of people were killing time. Kit and Holly were killing people. It inspired the Zodiac killer, who had been laying low for years, to write a letter to a newspaper denouncing their flippant attitude to violence in society by running such an ad, which is I found kind of interesting that inspired a real serial killer to critique the movie. Um,
Funny.
not to even get into politics, but um, something struck me as I was watching this movie. At times, Sissy Spacek, she looked very much like Greta Thunberg. I saw sort of similarities in the way
Interesting.
that just physically how they look. Seeing her now, or in this movie, it made me think, oh yeah, she's very much looks quite a bit like that. But yeah, I'm a big fan of Malick's movies. Hopefully, I was happy to finally get around to doing this movie because I think this one's the most accessible movie. He does go off on his own sort of interesting plane as far as movie making. They get much more challenging, I would say, to watch, but I think they become more rewarding as they go. So, but yeah, again, can be challenging to watch. But yeah, hopefully we can venture into more of his work. I know that the New World is one of my favorites, so hopefully we can maybe tackle that. But yeah,
Oh yeah. Yeah,
all
I've wanted to. I've that has come up before on my list of ones to watch. But I did not know that Terrence Malick was specifically. To be honest, to be fair, I'm a novice, a complete rookie for this. But I was going to say too. Yeah, if you notice, he does this movie, and then he comes back 5 years later or whatever it is, and he in '78 he does Days of Heaven, which is another detached voiceover. I understand. I think it is. And then he disappears and he's gone for 20 years and he comes back in '98 and he does Thin Red Line. That would also be a really good movie to cover because it is. You're right about that, about them being more complicated because I have tried to tackle that movie before and it's not insurmountable, but it's also not a typical action. You cannot mistake things for what they are not. But there's a level of seriousness and heft in his films. I have no doubt it would be really cool maybe to do maybe a longer series on something if we can get around that and wrangle that one of these days. But as far as this goes, new fan obviously, but they're new fans of him every day. But yeah, I was happy that we could do this too. This just whets the appetite too for this. Yeah, I agree with you. This is probably a little more accessible than than others. Like we're probably way more abstract, or maybe they're just kind of coming at something from a completely different backwards kind of way than you're used to, and maybe it's just a little bit too slow. But anyway, this is not that. This is very well paced. I wouldn't say you're in and out, but it does have something to say, and a tale to tell, and then you kind of decide what is this, is he just a misguided kid, or
right.
is he truly, conscious, he consciously knew what right from wrong and he just didn't
Yeah.
care, just didn't give a shit.
Yeah, it's one of those movies that tackles very dark and complex themes and ideas. Like I said, it's about a mass murderer and a woman that either is coming with him against her will or willingly. There's the age thing. There's the fact that he's a killer. And there's a lot of things in there that could drag this movie down and become maybe exploitational or overwrought, that you could do with a movie like this, where it doesn't get into any of that. It kind of and it doesn't cheat on it either. It's there, but you're kind of dealing with bigger ideas than just the surface level um shock value of the things. And a lot of times the shock value of the things that it's talking about kind of overwhelms a movie to the point where that's all it's about. But this movie finds a way to get underneath that and kind of get to a very human level with these people, so that you're dealing with them on a human level as opposed to a surface level. And it really makes you a participant in the movie. And I think the fact that your eyes into the everything is Holly, and she's so accepting, or lets what happens happen without too much commentary to those facts, that it kind of allows you to kind of experience this without getting too much in your head. You're kind of experiencing them
Well,
with that, but also kind of playing with the ideas that it kind of brings to the table.
I think that's where the pacing helps because it forces you inside Holly and Kit's reality rather than watching it as like a spectacle, like maybe
Uh-huh.
maybe more of like what a natural born killers would is. it's a lot more angrier. That's a lot more vibrant. That's a lot more,
Yeah.
but this does take its time, and it doesn't hide anything either. And that's kind of the point. And I like how Malik, I like how he said it like that. Uh,
Yeah.
because you have the Holly's past, she's not exactly, super reacting, uh, hopping around, uh,
Right.
protagonist. She's not really a
Mhm.
protagonist at all, really. I mean, she's just kind of there, and like you said, you are following her. Not long. You're not quite as close to her. You're a lot closer than say other times, but you get as much of her perspective as she lets out anyway. I mean, in her limited voice and way. And again, it's not because she's dumb or at all. It's just, I think that's just because of life experience. I mean, and
Mhm.
I don't know how you could mistake that for the other thing, but I don't. But I get it. Anyway, I'm looking forward to experiencing more of Mr. Malick's work, and also probably I'm probably going to go on a Martin Sheen or a Sissy Spacek binge at some point.
Mhm. Yeah, the fact that Martin Sheen's did this and Apocalypse Now, he's got some amazing work under his belt. And also I think there's a scene with a couple of kids in it, and that's a young Charlie Sheen and Amelia Estevez. So yeah, because they're there at the time of the filming, so I think they're like in the background
Okay,
at one point. So
yeah, that's
little
awesome.
trivia there, but
That's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah, it's like I said, it's one of those movies I've been dying to cover. Unfortunately, it is. I gave you the link for the Criterion version of the movie. I do have that version. Unfortunately, it's just a Blu-ray right now. They haven't re-released it as a 4K. When they did this, they did that off of 4K digital transfer, so
Okay,
they have the 4K of it. So all they have to do is press it to a 4K, but I haven't done it yet. They've been slowly kind of rolling out re-releases of their stuff. Still looks great. So if you wanted a physical copy, this would be the best way to get it. I don't know if there's any other ones, but it's a director approved Blu-ray. So again, there's some documentaries on there, interviews with Martin Sheen, Sissy Spacek, Jack Fisk, who met Sissy Spacek on this movie, and they eventually got married. So yeah, that brought them together in this. There's also an interview with the editor Billy Weber, I think, and also producer Edward R. Pressman. And he's produced some interesting movies, including The Crow, one that we covered a while back.
you did.
But yeah, some interesting stuff. There's also a little TV TV kind of a spot called TV show called American Justice. They have the episode where they talked about Charlie Starkweather, so you have that on there as well.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Yeah, no, I love this. I'd encourage folks to go out and see this one. This was a very good, probably one of the more sedate psycho summer movies, but not that
Yeah.
sedate either. Also, this one has teeth too,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
it's not.
probably don't wanna watch it with your mom or anything, but,
Yeah, probably
yeah,
not a great Mother's Day or Father's
uh,
Day movie, but yeah.
yeah. Yeah,
But
yeah,
that
but,
does get shot in the making of this film. I'm just kidding.
but yeah, it's definitely a movie. Yeah, it's, like I said, it kinda defies expectation. You kinda can't really pin it down on the genre except to say, it's a drama movie. I read where, I forget. I think it's Wikipedia that calls it a crime neo noir movie, which I don't see that. I mean, I guess there's a little bit of that in there, but not
I don't see
quite.
that at all.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
there's yeah, there's things to be said for just good movies. It's definitely worth checking out. Interesting choice for Psycho Summer, but again, we're talking about psychos. you know, there's those that are likable, you know, and enjoyable. So yeah, this is a you know, Martin Sheen does a great job of making a likable mass murderer.
Absolutely. Yep. I've been Mike.
And I'm Tom, and keep it safe out there.